That's the paradox. You need more people to process all the things that AI is outputting in order to do the work. More efficiency actually creates more jobs because human beings are the bottleneck.
Be judicious about where you put your attention and know that your attention, your thinking, your judgment is the most important characteristic about you right now.
It's a crazy world. You have to do 10 jobs and give attention to everything else. When are you getting the attention? And sorry to everyone using ChatGPT and Claude, but my experience this week is a little bit of human attention was worth about 1,000 times of ChatGPT attention.
Hi, and welcome to the Gap Savvy podcast, where we translate the fast evolutions of tech into what actually hits the books. I'm Angela Liu, a former instructor with KPMG's National Office, product strategist, and founder of Gap Savvy. I'm here with my co-host, Devon Coombs, advisor to the CAO, and lecturer at San Jose State University.
Hey, Angela, good to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you, Devon.
I had read a Forbes article this week about a paradox of AI, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So anyone listening, that's what you're going to get out of this today is how can it be that AI is automating so much and you can accomplish so much with it, but then the jobs really haven't changed that much, or maybe the jobs are changing, but the job report numbers and unemployment numbers are staying stable. And that's what this Forbes article I was reading was saying that it doesn't really matter how much you automate, your automation just results in more information because people still have to process that information and people don't have enough time or attention already. And so you actually need more people. That's the paradox. You need more people to process all the things that AI is outputting in order to do the work. More efficiency actually creates more jobs because human beings are the bottleneck. And so I'm curious on your thoughts, and then maybe you could show us some of those tutorials because I think it's a great illustration.
It's an interesting perspective, and it's interesting that they keyed in on the idea of attention, like our human attention, which I feel like has been actually what's been being sold most of the time, at least with any of these advertising spaces, which is how much attention can I get? So like that started with, obviously writing is very easy right now, but also coding. I'm actually surprised they're saying that the job numbers are stable because the headlines that we hear a lot about are actually about the coding jobs going away because it's so easy to build in code right now. Doesn't mean you're doing it well, but it means that you can certainly create something that appears demoable. But this idea of having just information overload, I have felt that for years. And right now I feel like, I don't want to say I'm like panicking, but like every once in a while I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so behind. And that feeling of behind is actually just accumulating because of all the tools and resources out there. It's very, very hard to keep up. So in a way, I could understand why that Forbes article rings true because I don't know if we can get through all of the data and the attention. And the AI thing to say is just build an agent to review it and then build another agent to review what that agent built. And maybe as a background, I did go to this conference this week. It was actually thrown by like another community runner in the accounting space called Automates that I know very well. And it was an interesting mix of accounting and finance leaders, both from people who are building software in the space, as well as people that were using the software, as well as people from companies like Anthropic who shared a lot about what they were building internally. And that was a really interesting thing because as we talk about the idea of, I guess what people are calling a SaaS apocalypse, which is very difficult to say, but like, is software dead or is SaaS dead? And I think that that is also interesting because we're seeing it in a proliferation of tools and resources. We're also seeing it in a proliferation of how easy it is to build and this fear that all software is going to go away. I think what came out of that is like, it's definitely going to change. But how do we ready ourselves in this thought process? And what do you do if you're in the seat of like a buyer or a user of this? Are you supposed to be building or buying? Which I very much feel like you should be building and buying. But how do we slow this down a little bit for ourselves or choose where to put our attention to this point of this Forbes article? I'm curious to get your thoughts if that all wraps together tightly.
I would love to pick your brain on all of it because the same with the CEOs and CFOs that I work with. It's very interesting because there's so many of them say they want to adopt AI. It's been a priority ever since I left Google by almost every leader I meet is, Devon, how can we adopt AI? And I give them the whole buffet. It's like, hey, we can train your team how to use it and become more effective. We can look at all of your tech stack and extract the most value out of that and learn what AI tools you're not using. Or we could look into new tools. We could do it all. And then they freeze. And I normally recommend starting with training, but they can't even get budget for that normally because there's so much going on that most of that budget is being diverted to strategic decision-making, hiring people like me to give them recommendations on what they should choose, or working with Bain or McKinsey on Well, how should we implement AI, or what's the most effective way to do it? Because it's easier to do that so you don't become the fall guy than it is to make an actual decision. And I blame that to what you're saying being the SaaS apocalypse. Because, okay, so now there's 20 RevRec tools, 30 RevRec tools, 40. Which one do I choose? Maybe I don't choose any of them. Maybe I build it. Maybe I talk to my engineering team. If it's so easy to build, why don't I build? And I think you phrased it very well, like build versus buy. You don't have to choose either or. You can do both. But when you have so many options at the table and people are moving so fast, it's easy to get analysis paralysis. It's interesting because you can have 20 different businesses build very similar products now using code, and they might be varying degrees of successful or have varying degrees of success. But a lot of the success is still going to come to the human relationships and the marketing and the sales teams, and less be on the product side, because you still need an attention economy. You need someone to pay attention to you. You need someone to trust you. And you need to have good people build the tool. So the tools and the software are becoming less of the bottleneck, and getting people's attention is more of the bottleneck. Does that mean the future is sales and marketing? Are we a future advertising economy? And what are your thoughts there?
You phrased it very well in terms of the connection to the SaaS apocalypse. What am I supposed to do? Should I buy this tool? Will this company even be around? Oh my gosh, I just watched a demo that said I could build the same flux analysis, revenue waterfall, accruals engine, SOX documentation, right? I just saw that contract review. Should I build it or buy it? And I wanted to direct that piece just back to it is not a binary. I think you should do both. I think both are imperative. What is the most dangerous is to do nothing. So I think it's so interesting that you just said that people are spending that budget on buying strategists through consultants, because I do think we are moving into a place where it is how do I upskill? What should I buy? What should I build? And if you buy, you will learn. If you build, you will learn. If you're buying, that thing is not going to do everything that you want it to do, and you will still be doing a portion of it manually, whether that is through emails, through Slack, through Excel spreadsheets. And you should be learning to build in those spaces. That will upskill your team. That will get to a place, but doing nothing is way worse than all of that. And if there is that budget question, then if it is a strategist, that's also okay. I actually feel like knowing that any of those options is not going to be irreversible is really important. Yeah, that's kind of where I am after what you said in terms of constrained budget and then where to go. You also said something about marketing sales. I'm just going to react to it quickly, which is real life human relationships. And that is kind of what I experienced at this Automates conference that I just went to, which is like, what so much more got done. I didn't read anything, but I understand way more just through these real life human relationships. And I do think that will become more important, whether that is marketing and sales. I hope not, but I know that my inbox is full of stupid AI written emails from cold outreach that I hate. LinkedIn has all sorts of stuff. I feel like there's comments even on newsletters that are bots. Like, I hope that we strengthen our human relationships from this, but I know that first leg might look like marketing and sales through ads.
Because I'm 100% with you on the human connection. Can I tell you a story from the week that I think might relate to it? So I did something I'm proud of this week. I deleted all the AI from my phone. I don't chat with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and I'll just use it on my computer. And so I did this, and I had a really tough day yesterday. I mean, it was like one of those weird days where you realize that AI has gone so far, but that humans are like, there's so much infrastructure around humanity that we rely on. So I had to give a test in my class, a midterm. All right. And I was going to do the midterm online because I have almost 200 students this semester, and I didn't want to grade the paper. I just didn't want to grade 200 papers, and I wanted to be fair. We get there, there's a storm in San Jose, and there was hail and whatnot, and the power goes out in the middle of the exam. All the Wi-Fi goes out, and the cell service goes out. I'm always prepared, so I had paper exam copies, but that still sucked.
Amazing.
For the students. I felt really bad that they had to retake the exam and had all these errors go in place, and it goes to show you the non-reliance of the internet. But I was having a tough day, so I went there, then I called my admin who got printed exams for me, and I had to run across campus to my next class. The storm picked up, and it soaked all the exams, so you couldn't write on the exams. So in that next class, I'm like, I hope the Wi-Fi works, because I don't have any exams left. Just one of those, I was having a really rough day, and I already had trouble sleeping the night before because there's hail. And normally this would be a moment I realized I'd like write ChatGPT or I'd text something like that and I'd be like, hey, what's going on today? Or can you get me out of my funk? And I realized that was an interesting instinct that I was going to go to that, but I didn't have it on my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to walk back. I had a student who came up to after me when I asked you, what's the accounting equation? And in my last class, I had 5 students get it wrong. And this is a junior level finance course. Again, out of 200, okay, it's understandable. Some people don't care. But still, as a teacher who quit Google to go do this, like, wow, what am I doing? I had that moment of like, what am I? I'm teaching all this, and it's like some of the students don't even know the accounting equation. So I walk back and I'm heading to the garage, and a student comes up to me and tells me like, hey, it's a young lady, and she's like, hey, just so you know, I needed to find you. And I was like, everything okay? Did you fail? Like, do we need to talk about it? You can come to my office hours. She's like, no, you're the first teacher I've had in my life who actually cares about me. I just want you to know that. And I've never done well in math. I've never done well in finance. And I'm now finally confident about this and might actually make this a career. And I just had to say thank you because you had such an impact. And we're only a few weeks in the semester. And I really don't think I would have had that moment if I was looking at my phone, or if I really needed to be looking up and looking around because I noticed her and she noticed me, and that's what made it feel comfortable. And honestly, in the moment, I went to my car and I kind of broke down a little bit. I normally don't cry that much, but it was kind of overwhelming to realize how much I needed that human encouragement at that moment. I had a rough day. I needed that encouragement. And then how sad it was that so many teachers didn't care for her over the years. And she had told me that part of what felt good was that I had the written exams in my back pocket because she wanted to know someone knew what her grade was, because almost all of her schooling has been electronic since COVID. And so teachers have relied on this. They don't know how their students are actually performing because all of it's automated. And so that broke me down, where I was sad. I was happy for the encouragement. I was sad from the tough day. I was sad from the plight of the students, of how many students feel like they aren't cared about. And it just made me realize, it connects to what you just said, of just like that human aspect of us is so essential and so important. And I realized how moving it was to me. And I know you and I had the conversations like, just text me when you're going through something. And that's meant a lot. I don't think we can replace it. I think when we replace that, it is really at our detriment. It made me think of, not just trying to tie and tell you about the story through the day, but that human, like when you said, like, I hope we don't replace the human element, like in-person learning, the community experience you just had, that is so important about humanity. We can't replace it. People need to know they aren't just commodities to give their attention, that they deserve some attention and care too.
Devon, I'm so glad you shared. I actually feel like in the flurry of all of our conversations in AI, that story sharing our humanness on so many levels, right? Like the physicality of the rain, the exams, the human vulnerability that your student said this is so important that I'm going to say this to you, right? The fact that you're not looking at your phone, that you have attention span to take that in, that you had emotions to feel what that meant, that you could be stretched by the paradox of pushing forward this AI initiative, trying to be a good teacher, getting through your grades, like trying to be a good human, like connecting with other people. And like that I think goes to the heart of the complexity of being human. And it exemplifies how the fight is for our attention.
No, thanks for letting me share it. And that's exactly it. How do we maybe doing more things faster isn't the right solution all the time? There's benefits, and I love playing with AI, but people need time and attention. And I just realized that a lot through that movement. And I didn't realize how that tied into this until you and I were talking. But yeah, it's a crazy world. You have to do 10 jobs and give attention to everything else. When are you getting the attention? And sorry to everyone using ChatGPT and Claude, but my experience this week is a little bit of human attention was worth about 1,000 times of ChatGPT attention.
Yeah, and the irreplaceableness, but also identifying the risk of how powerful language is, and how, because these models can talk to us, we do feel that mimic of emotion. Like it is very, very good at language, and it does evoke real human emotions in us, real human dependency. And I think I've never even thought about actually taking it off my phone recently, but I definitely have with all of other social media. Like I try to make it hard, but like the way that I would combat that attention stealing, I had not thought about moving to the AI thing, because right now we're so focused on upskilling, making sure that it's part of your day-to-day. And it is, but to create that space for yourself. Yeah, I hope that never goes away. I can't imagine it going away. And even if it commercially seems like it goes away and we just start selling to different agents that are buying from different agents, i.e. Moltbook, right? Claude bot. Now What is it changing to? It's still Claudebot, right?
Clawbot? That was a
Claude.
big one. Claw, like lobster claw.
He just joined OpenAI. That was the big news this week. The guy that created and founded that. It's supposed to be the next generation of agents. And what happened in that community of all agents, only community, right, was buying, selling, them convincing each other, them talking about consciousness, whether they were conscious, the humans that they were mad at because they didn't treat them well enough. The mimicking of language is intensely good right now. That hits a deeply kind of personal want for something that I don't want to go away, because I agree. I think that's what it means to be human.
So I saw on Reddit the other day, and it could be fun to scan through some of this, or I'll flash up some multi-book, but people are putting in questions like, if you could make a picture of our relationship, what does it look like? And these are like have thousands of upvotes on them, and there'll be pictures of like an AI robot kissing their human companion, or pictures like that, where that's what ChatGPT or Claude are making as or Gemini are making as image generation when you ask them, how is our relationship? And yeah, I think it's very interesting to imagine that because we rely on language so much, that we can and often do develop relationships with things that might not be human. And I can think back to like the good, even AOL days. Like I'm going to date myself here, but I had AIM. And
so did I.
I remember there being chat box back then, or you'd have chat, like I'd go into chat rooms as a teenager and try to find girls to flirt with or whatever. And you didn't know if they were girls. And you develop relationships. You could develop relationships with people that you didn't know who they were, and they might not exist. And if robots can mimic that, or AI can mimic that, you can have relationships with AI, right? Perceived in your head, you can have a real relationship with AI. And I don't think that's being discussed enough yet. Maybe it is in small circles, but it seems like the noise is going much louder than the noise of all the progress and the noise of the speed. A lot louder than the human element.
I think it depends on what circles you run in and what the algo thinks about you on any given app.
Yeah, that's its own problem.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like I get fed that quite a bit, and maybe it's because it's something that I also care about, of all these different articles about kids getting tricked to go meet up with people. You know, like we're real humans doing real actions in the world. We're moving into this agentic space where these agents are able to take action. We are like, this technology is moving so fast that we don't always know what's happening or what's possible. We just need to do more AI upskilling. And when we talk, we usually talk about accounting and finance, right? And in accounting and finance, we have to stay upbeat. But if you think about it, if you are in accounting and finance, you must stay upbeat, or else like your job is way too, like you can't get it done. Like there's just too much crap that you have to get through and people to deal with. So in a way, maybe you have to be upbeat, but it might not look like it on our face.
Hey, exactly. Internal optimist.
Yeah. I think that that's a real component. And depending on which thread you go down of that question, I think that is the larger humanity question. And I do think that is very real. But I do think that the relationships that we build, actually, we did a session before on memory. That was actually pointing very much to this, which is like memory in the cumulative context of us creates a very clear picture of the patterns of what we care about, right? Because the neural network, AI is really amazing at pattern matching. And we create patterns in what we like and perceive, and we take historically what has happened to us and we project it onto the future. Some of us become more or less aware of that, but like that pattern, it's very, very, very good at, because of where the data points come from, right? The data points come from the internet. The data points come from social media. The data points come from you lingering on a picture too long, right? Even advertising today is so insanely accurate because of that, right? Like at some point, if you like just talk about buying a pair of shoes, it shows up on your phone. Or like over the conference, we were having this weird conversation about Olympic curling, because one guy only got fed Olympic curling, literally saw no other sports. And now, because we had that conversation around the table, we were all going to get curling.
I normally only use Facebook to look at my family photos, and my wife happens to be Asian. And I'll notice right afterwards, I get all my feed is just a bunch of young Asian women in my feed. And I'm like, that's not what I was going for, Al. You made me realize something very interesting, because this goes into one of our previous discussions of one of the hardest things, at least in my stage of life right now, and I'm sure your stage is, what do you say yes to? We have so much limited time, so much limited attention, a lot of good opportunities. How do you choose the great ones? And I'd say that skill is going to become important for everyone in this, and maybe that's part of this problem where, now anyone at college, like I had a student who reached out to me and said, literally, this is in my inbox right now, who said, hey, I'm used and learned Clawbook or Claw, whatever the Claw AI is. And he said that he was going to use it to build an app to mirror, to mess with him making TikTok accounts so he could add followers without he would trick TikTok to think he was human so he could add more followers to it. So make like his own kind of little bot. So then he could start a business where he helps people get more followers on TikTok. And I like the guy, but he needs to focus on school. Like, that's not what he should be focusing on right now. He needs to get to pass a class. And I'm happy that he's playing with AI, but he's focused on building an AI that will help other people get more AI to look at their TikTok or whatever it may be. And so I'm proud of him for upskilling. But if anyone can build anything at any time, it doesn't mean you should be building it. And so now almost everyone's going to have too many opportunities, similar to the CAO and CFO, and need a strategic advisor to tell them what the heck to do. Like that coach, mentor, friend role is more important now more than ever, of someone who can be a no BS to you and say, your goal was this, stick to your goal, because now there's an infinite amount of paths that you can go down, and you could do them, but that doesn't mean you should be doing them. Does that make sense? Or am I off?
Yes, I wrote down what to say yes to, kind of where you started, which goes back to the attention piece. Because of the amazing amount of possibilities, because everybody can build, not everyone should build. What does building even mean? I think that where to choose to put your attention just feels like that's the theme. And people are leaning more on humans than ever. I actually just realized that's probably what you're saying. Like, by putting your budget in the strategy person is actually saying, I'm going back to the human, actually.
Yep.
Because now that there's so much noise, and I know all of this stuff is easy to build, I can't trust this stuff. I can't trust the feeds. I can't trust how many followers someone has. And I was like, how do you do that? And then he was like, do LinkedIn connections. I was like, wait a minute. I'm a first degree LinkedIn connection. I was like, do you have an agent on me? And I was like, show me the agent on me.
It's crazy.
I maybe in the short term and maybe even long term, these human beings becoming more important, like hiring you as a strategist, for example, might actually be a great place to put your money, because at least, like in your example, that CAO knows you're human because he's worked with you before, right? Like later on, we might not actually even know if you're human. But right now, I know you're human because I've also met you in person.
Yeah, you're right. In a couple of years, we might not know who's human online, who's real or not. That's already a real problem. Like, I think the most famous Instagram person right now is fake.
Well, and that's interesting because, yeah, in that weird LinkedIn example where I was like, where's the agent that you have on me? I just realized that, so in your example, you talked about on Facebook, after you look at family photos and your wife who happens to be Asian, you get other Asian women. Whenever I post about AI on LinkedIn, a whole bunch of like clean cut, kind of good looking Asian guys that work at these big AI companies start wanting to connect with me. But they have like, I swear they're all bots, because I can kind of tell from how their profiles are set up. Absolutely what happens when I first started posting on AI, and whenever I post anything on AI, those are the people that reach out to me because of that same funny thing.
Well, it's good that we recognize it. It's unfortunate, probably many people don't recognize it. And I think we started this with, how do we build? Do you choose to build or buy? And this apocalypse. And I think we've covered it in a really interesting way together already, of that's not really the problem. It's an intention problem and a trust problem, and a recognition, knowing that there is a lot of noise and reality is a lot harder to decipher, and maybe going down to first principles of relationship building, knowing people that you work with, building the trust, going back to the paper exam, even if it gets wet in the rain. That all fits together better than AI. You're still reliant on the underlying infrastructure. And at least with computers where the exam failed, at least you know why it went wrong. With AI, this stuff is so complex and human language is so misleading. We don't know where the pitfalls that we're going to go into. And I'm not an anti-tech person by any stretch of the imagination. I love progress. I think we have to go with the train, but doesn't mean you should stop being prudent and realize that the real costs of these items, and that you do need a human advisor. So go build, go buy, but be aware that the real issue is, what are you going to focus your attention on so that you can take concrete steps to move forward to your goals. And maybe it's time for everyone to be a little more concrete on what their goals actually are and where they want to get to with themselves, their finances, their business, whatever they're looking at.
I think we hit on something that's very interesting, that it's conceptual and a little nebulous, right? And we sound more, I don't think we sound doomsday, but I do think that typically we're like, look at all this stuff you can do and where are we going? This concept of attention, I think, is an important one to focus on, like where and who to say yes to. And if it is AI upskilling in terms of like that holistic nature of like safety of AI, where is your data going? Change your mind. You can make the next decision, which I think is really important and an interesting one in the flexibility of our thinking now. Be intentional about what you say yes to. And then when you have more information, say yes to the next thing or do the next thing and the next thing. Don't buy something that's so expensive that you can mess up catastrophic. And whatever output you get, your attention, your subject matter expertise is more important now than ever. Your judgment is more important now than ever. Your thinking is more important now than ever. Every single output will look insanely right because it quite literally is probability-wise spitting out the next word. So it will look right for sure. And you have to go in knowing that. It doesn't mean that you need to like double your work. It just means that your time savings is not going to go away, at least initially for sure, right? Because your thinking is actually, you need it more right now. Like this idea of like people are getting dumber, that is directionally, you've put your attention on the wrong thing. You've put your attention on fake TikTok followers. And being selective of maybe my attention doesn't go there, but it goes there. But when you know more, make that next decision.